Is that supposed to show up on the Synthax YouTube page?
Mm-hmm. Still propagating.
Oh, okay. Oh, showing live now. Yep.
My name is Derek Wadala, and we have the infamous Jeff Peterson in our technical support office in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And today we're going to be fielding
Hi,
questions from you
folks.
live regarding RME support questions, product questions, technical support issues. So feel free to write your chat questions, and we will address them here live on air. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Derek. Appreciate it.
So while we wait for some folks to start asking questions, what have you been up to lately on the phones with customers? What kind of questions are you getting?
Well, lately, this last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of calls regarding the new Macs. Being that RME is already compatible with the new Mac platform, Big Sur on both Intel and the new M1 ARM chips that they're producing. Which, by the way, RME has been thoroughly impressed with. The driver install is a little bit of a bear, but once it's up and running, it is working really good. So that is actually one thing I would like to show you guys is we do have quite a bit of info available. Can I share my screen here, Derek?
Yep.
Okay. Share my window here. So on the RME downloads page, if you're needing help with this, just go to this page, rme-usa.com, and you can just click on downloads right here at the top of the page from the home page. And then you'll see here there is a clickable red bar about Mac OS 11 Big Sur. And if we click on this, that will give us an installation guide for both the M1 chip or the Intel chip. And let me just make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing here. Okay. So that tells us how to do the driver install. This is the biggest one here. So with the M1 chip, you'll actually have to boot the Mac into recovery mode. So that means you hold down the power button when you power it up and keep holding it until you get into the recovery console. And then you'll go through the normal thing. You tell it you want to work in English or whatever language you prefer. And then we'll go to the startup security utility. And by default, it's set for full security. And in that setting, that is only going to allow you to install apps from Apple's store. So obviously the RME drivers are not going to be part of that. So in order to install these third-party drivers and really any other kind of hardware driver that doesn't come from Apple, you'll need to use this reduced security mode. So once we turn on this reduced security, then we are now capable of installing kernel extensions. So we'll just reboot into the normal Mac OS, run the driver install, and then the last step here is go into your Mac security and privacy, and you'll find that section from the System Preferences app, and then go to Security and Privacy. And on the first tab, General tab, you'll need to click Allow here to allow the RME driver to finish installing. So, it's a couple of hoops to jump through, not really a big deal, but props to RME for putting this info together in a very usable way that makes it easy for everyone. And hopefully, you guys can figure that out on your own. But of course, we're always here to help if you need it.
Jeff, what would you say of all those steps? Where do people get hung up the most?
At the beginning, because there's no way to know that any of this is necessary at all.
Okay.
Apple doesn't tell you that, so you really got to kind of just figure it out. And usually that means calling tech support or going to the driver page to check for new drivers.
And getting in that recovery mode is holding down the power button, whether I'm using a laptop or a desktop computer, right?
Yeah. Okay. Normally you just tap the power button to start it up. If you hold the power button in, that's how you boot into recovery mode on these newer Macs.
Got it.
So that's been the bulk of it lately. We always have the normal tech support stuff of Total Mix, which, of course, our YouTube channel and RME's YouTube channel are both full of awesome video tutorial content that's been created by our team at Synthax PR. Um, Really, really good videos that they've done about Total Mix and all the different functions, ways you can do things like work with Zoom or Skype, or using Loopback to record out of one app into another app. So all the things that really makes Total Mix great are sort of beyond the standard experience of a sound card, and they've done a wonderful job with making those tutorial videos and taking a lot of phone calls away from me.
There you go. Looking to see if we have any live questions on YouTube yet. Are we looking at Facebook as well? Yes, we are. Yeah. So aside from, how about on Windows? Are we seeing any issues there with installing drivers or anything along those lines?
Well, Windows, it's kind of the same as always with Windows 10. No major issues, but here's another interesting fact on Windows and Mac now. There's some new security stuff. I guess it's because people think their phones are listening to them. Any apps now need to be explicitly given permission to use audio inputs. So we've seen that in Mac since High Sierra or so, maybe Catalina, where you need to go into that same system preferences section and go to the privacy tab and grant rights for microphone for all your audio applications. So if you happen to see, hey, my Pro Tools is working fine, but Bitwig is not getting any audio input, that's probably the issue, is you need to grant microphone rights on a per app basis. So we're seeing the same thing with Windows. In Windows 10, they have a similar procedure now where you have to go into the Windows control panel to grant mic rights for any of your audio apps.
Got it.
How about you, Derek? How are things going in your world? The sales side of things.
Things are good. We're doing very well. We've had a great several months. We've had great inventory to support our customers. Lots of folks are concerned about availability of audio interfaces right now.
Mm-hmm.
And RME has done a brilliant job of keeping supply and keeping support for not only the drivers and the software, but also availability. Because in the industry, there's some issues going on with our competitors. So overall, we've been busy filling orders, and I never want to take this forum to speak ill of our competitors or anything, but just there has been a shortage of interfaces, and there's been some scarcity out there. So we have product. We have Babyfaces and Firefaces, and we don't anticipate it.
Yeah, you haven't seen the warehouse this week. We have product. That is for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, the biggest questions I see is Total Mix questions, in terms of people who get a Babyface or a Fireface who have very specific routing questions. And given everybody's propensity for streaming and doing things like we're doing here, how do they manage their desktop audio from their microphone and get that back into whatever streaming software they're using? And we have a Loopback feature, and there's some great videos on Loopback and how that can be done. But aside from that, it's really just been, going like gangbusters. We've had lots of customers who are excited and I will say this: some of the RME customers are the greatest customers out there. They take the time to write and provide feedback and tell us, what problem the RME product solved for them, or how impressed they were with the quality, or how impressed they were with something they used RME to replace something else with. So, we love keep the comments coming, and I know everybody's busy, so it always takes a little bit of time to write out an email or send a comment in, but we do appreciate it, and it always helps us know, let us know what we're doing wrong.
Absolutely. In fact, I had a similar kind of situation this week where a customer wrote in and said, I think I found an error in the user manual. So, wow, that that's really shocking. Let me take a look. And sure enough,
Wait, people read that?
well, that's exactly right. So I sent it to Matthias, who's the lead developer for RME, and he sent me back, multiple points and said, well, first of all, why do I even bother writing manuals? That error has been here for years and nobody noticed. So thank you to that user who had discovered that error, and it's all fixed and all the updated manuals are being uploaded now. But, it's a simple thing, a block diagram, but,
That's funny.
Yeah, thanks for pointing it out.
Yeah, as far as other questions we get, there's a lot going on with, what's new from RME. We introduced some microphone preamps last year, and we've had questions about expanding those into with Maddie and using it with their Fireface UFX Plus and stuff like that. And I don't know, Jeff, if you get questions from folks about that, or is it more installation related?
Boy, it runs the gamut. But certainly we've been talking a lot about the 12 mic lately, which is a new preamp from RME. The RME systems are all made to be sort of modular to build up to what you want it to be. The Fireface series in particular, you look at it and you go, well, 4 mic pre's, how do I record a band? Well, you can add on to it. You build it from what you start with. So the Fireface is the core, and we can add converters or preamps or digital format converters onto that to make it into whatever you need it to do. Just help somebody put together a system that they want to be able to record a band in a school and have everyone listen to that. So we're looking at a UFX Plus along with a 12 mic, which will give us 16 mic ins plus 8 line ins, enough to pretty much do a full band and drums and everything. And then going out to headphone monitoring system from there.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of that, just kind of putting together the right pieces for what people want to do. A lot of new focus these days has been with networking. So Dante and AVB are coming up quite a lot. A lot of questions around those technologies. So it's nice to have solutions that can solve those problems for people.
Yep, I agree. The other thing I see quite a bit coming back to Total Mix is just understanding how to, the difference between headphone mixing and main out mixing and stuff like that. We get that question quite a bit, and there's quite a few videos on the RME audio RME USA YouTube channel. So I encourage folks to check those out. And there's a lot of extravaganzas to come where we have lots of artists and professional users of RME gear who are really excited to share what they're doing and why they use RME. Also, a recent video that we did was the whole Steady Clock FS, which is kind of what makes RME, especially the latest RME gear, sound as good as it does. It's a really fascinating video if you like to get into the weeds on the technology.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that whole thing is really about getting rid of jitter, which jitter is your enemy when you're dealing with digital audio. So anything that we can do to reduce the jitter, that's going to improve the audio performance, and especially those kind of small details. That's where jitter makes the biggest difference, is when you're listening on a really good system and have good headphones or monitor speakers in a good room, and you just that last little inch is what you're gaining from the Steady Clock FS, that a little extra bit of fidelity.
Right.
Oh, we've got a question. How do I get the headphone mix to show up in the control room area of Total Mix FX? It's currently only showing in the software playback. So, yeah, in Total Mix FX, let's actually pull this up.
You want to share your screen?
I can do that, yeah. There we go. So, share. So now you should be seeing my Total Mix window. All these can be assigned. So there's nothing that's really dedicated as being the headphone out or the main out. These are all freely assignable on your bottom row. If you take a look down here, there's an assign button, and we can click on assign, and then main out can be any channel. In this case, it's analog 1, 2, because that's where my monitors are connected, and I can assign a speaker B. And if I do that, then I'll have a speaker switching. In fact, let's just go ahead and do it. I'll say speaker B is 3-4. Okay. And now if I switch, we're going to lose sound briefly here, but so that just switches me from my speaker A to speaker B and back. I can assign several headphone mixes. I can have up to 4 headphones assigned here. So really the short answer is you choose your headphone out. Here I've assigned my phones 1 as PH910, which is the physical headphone jack on the front of the Fireface. And then whatever I want to send to that output, I just pull up faders. So, this is the whole key to Total Mix is every output has a layer of mixer. So if I click on my main here, now I am making the mix for main out. If I click on phones, now I'm looking at a whole different layer of the mixer that's only affecting the phones. So if I adjust like my mic signal, that will adjust what is going to my headphones. So hopefully that answers it. High on hi-fi.
Yep. And the other thing, Jeff, I'm going to share my screen. So if you unshare, I'll just kind of, for those that have a Babyface Pro, which is kind of a little bit different GUI, a little less to look at. So
same GUI, just less channels.
Yeah, less channels, so a little easier to comprehend. Same basic premise as what Jeff just discovered. So here's the inputs of my Babyface up here, and on the bottom, on the Babyface, there is a headphone jack, and it is phones 3-4 in the GUI. So I have my phones assigned to the phones 3-4. Now, if I get rid of it, this is kind of how things start in the beginning, and there's nothing over here. And since I'm using the main analog outputs for my computer monitors as well as what's feeding Zoom, I'm going to select that, and it brings it over to the right. And then I'm going to select that my phones out be the phones 3-4. Now, if this was a Fireface, I think it's phones 910 and phones 1112.
That's right.
Like that. Yeah.
Yep.
So as soon as I do that, it brings the phones over here. And then if you ever forget what you assigned, you can do it like what you see me doing here. And you can also click the little names button.
Yeah.
And then you can see, oh, okay, I have phones assigned to the phones 1, and I have analog 1, 2. And the other thing I always tell people is if you ever accidentally hit this button here, you might get confused because Jeff was saying if you click on an output, if you click on any fader in the bottom row, that's the mixer for that output. But if you happen to go into free mode, it's a different animal. So I always tell people,
I like to call that hard mode.
Yeah, I always tell people just, number one, understand what this little teal box is about and know what this names is doing and know what this is doing, and you will avoid calling Jeff.
Yeah, that names function too is such a cool feature because that allows you to double click on any channel name and name it whatever you want. Now, not those are custom there, but if you go to like an input channel, Derek, click on AN1 and just double click on the name tag, you'll be able to enter in your own, name there.
Yeah.
So we can say that, that's my Audio Technica mic on channel 1.
Yeah.
And so that makes things a little easier for overview when you're in the heat of session.
Yeah, and then if you forget, what physical, like obviously on a Babyface it's simple, but Jeff had a Fireface window, so he had a lot more faders, and if he forgets, he can just hit names and then, oh, okay, that's analog 1.
Yep.
And you can see, for example, on my headphone mix, I don't have my microphone up very loud, but on my main out, it's up all the way, so that's what's feeding everybody.
So every output can have a mix of all input channels and all playback channels. So 1-to-1 mix or everything mixed. So that's really the whole power of Total Mix is just that all your input channels can be routed to an output. All your playback channels can be routed to an output. We can loop it back and record that output as an input. Really so flexible.
Got another question, and I think since you have a Fireface UFX, the question is, you can share your screen, Jeff. How do I hide all the MADI channels in Total Mix on the UFX? Because the user interface is too cluttered. I totally get it. I do the same thing at a trade show, and when I'm doing demos, and then I use the layout preset layouts to recall what I've hidden and what I haven't hidden, but I'm going to let Jeff show you how to
Yeah,
do that.
exactly. So I'm just going to make this a little bigger to show more. I kind of had it collapsed. So, this isn't the MADI unit, but I'll show you how you would hide channels. This is the UFX2. So all we do is go into options, and then we can go to channel layout. And I'm going to get rid of my ADAT channels. I'm not using those here. So let's just hide them and declutter a bit. I'm just going to do a click on the first and then shift click on the bottom. That selects all in between. And then I'm going to just click hide in mixer / matrix. And that's going to get rid of my inputs. And there they go, disappeared. Now they still exist. I could still select them in software, like in your Pro Tools or Cubase, but they're just not going to show up in the mixer panel. So that was just on inputs. We can do the same for the playback channels and the outputs. And we can also hide things in controllers. So if we're using MIDI controllers to control total mix with Mackie protocol, or if we're using OSC controllers, it can help a lot if you can sort of condense things down to the channels that you're actually using in that case. So, we're not having to bank around with the MIDI faders or MIDI control faders, banks of 8 or whatever it may be. This way we can kind of just get rid of all the channels we don't want to see, group the ones that we are using right next to each other. And that makes it a lot easier to have overview with a MIDI controller. So let's go ahead and get rid of the ADAT channels on my outputs as well. I'm going to go ahead and hide those. And let's do the same in the middle row, the playbacks. I'm going to hide those. And I just click OK, and they're peeled off. Hopefully that helps. Do we lose Derek?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I was so mesmerized with your skill set.
It's beautiful.
Total mix.
All my hotkeys.
Yep. Yeah, I get that question a lot. Like, I never use the ADAT IO, so I don't want to look at it, which I totally get. The one thing I will say on the output section, you might want to save some faders to play with for loopback.
Yep.
Because another question I sometimes get, and I'm sure Jeff does too, which is, how can I create a mix in Total Mix and record it? And Loopback is perfect for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Loopback is a wonderful thing. I'm using it right now. You're using it right now.
Yep.
We're routing our mics to output 1 and 2, looping back to input 1, 2 for Zoom to pick it up.
Yeah, so I run Zoom in stereo, so if I were to turn off Loopback, my microphone audio would flip over to the left side of your speakers because I'm panning the microphone center and doing a mix. So you can see here it's center. As soon as I get rid of it, now I'm going to be panning something completely, and what you're hearing is going to be, just that one input. So a lot of people ask about the loopback over here, and if I were to make that ADAT channel 1 and 2 a loopback channel, I could create a mix of several things above, including my microphone, and that mix there can be recorded. So if I open up a DAW, which I'm not going to do because I'm running a lot of software right now, but in my DAW or recording software, I can select that ADAT input 1 and 2, and that's what will be captured. Meanwhile, I could be recording my microphone dry on a separate track. So in parallel, record a mix with maybe some effects. If I wanted to add some reverb and stuff to the voice and capture the voice with reverb and do a mix on this channel, but simultaneously capture it here dry. So that's certainly possible.
Hey, while you're in there, that channel. So I get this question actually quite a lot, which is AS12. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah.
So that's actually your ADAT ports. ADAT 1 through 8 is the optical output. But the first pair is kind of special. If we route audio only to the first pair, then we can send it out in SPDIF mode. And that is a 2-channel, optical SPDIF that would be compatible with your normal home theater stuff. or a 2-channel ADDA unit
Yeah, so I'll
versus an
show
ADAT.
right here in your control panel, all the audio interfaces either has like a Thunderbolt icon or this Fireface USB settings icon. And so if I were to, right now I'm using things as an ADAT, but it also can be SPDIF.
Yep.
So I think RME just said, wouldn't it be neat to put the A and the S in the nomenclature so it's clear?
Effectively, it's ADAT / SPDIF is what it boils
go.
down to.
They can only fit so many characters
Yeah.
in the fader.
Exactly.
So. All right. What other questions?
Workaround for FireWire to USB. Keith, I am sorry, that is just not possible. FireWire and USB are totally different protocols. If you have a FireWire device, you can continue to use it with FireWire to Thunderbolt if you have Thunderbolt. You can put in a FireWire card in a PC or a Mac. You could theoretically even set up the Fireface on your computer and have it work as a standalone 8-channel ADDA. A lot of people have repurposed old Firefaces when they bought a UFX. You can just set up the Fireface for extra I/O channels and just link them with ADAT. That's a little complex setup, but basically it comes down to routing analog in to ADAT out, route the ADAT in to analog out, store it in the flash memory, then go and set up your clock to sync to ADAT and store that in flash memory. And then boom, you shut it off, unplug FireWire. Now it works like a standard 8-channel line level converter in and out, like an ADI-8 DS. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but FireWire's sort of gone away now.
All right. There are so many tutorials about using Total Mix with the Babyface Pro. Which would you recommend for beginner YouTubers? There's several on there. I think in the playlist section of the RME YouTube channel, there's these a whole Total Mix, like Total Mix 1, Total Mix 2, right? And it kind of walks you through it.
Yeah, a couple of video tutorial playlists actually is where I would suggest to start. So if you go to the YouTube/RME audio, go to the playlist section, there's a Total Mix FX Beginner's Guide. That is really the best place to start. And it's not like a long hour-long thing. It's a bunch of 2, 3, 4-minute long videos covering one concept at a time, and allows you to really see it in action, what you're reading in a manual. Back in the day, we had to learn it from a manual. There was no, you just kind of had to figure it out. But the video tutorials, I think, are really good and show in great detail how you can get around and do that. But again, if you're having trouble, you just call us up. We'll hold your hand. We'll get through it. We can share a screen if need be. And, nothing's ever that complex. There's always a way. Thanks to RME building in all this flexibility, we can always find a way to do what you need to do.
Yeah, in fact, I'll give you my email address in the chat, and I can point you to that video. The next question that I see here, I'm trying to type, talk, and chew gum at the same time. Is there any hold on. It would be cool to see a Loopback setup tutorial for standalone synth apps made for iPad OS into the DAW on the new M1 Max. So you want to...
iPad apps running on the Mac. That's a good question. I haven't really had any personal contact with the M1s yet, so I know they can run iPad apps to some extent. I haven't really seen that or how that actually works with Core Audio. I would assume